there's many of us that will live with cancer and have to coexist with this disease. And the idea that we can give a voice and now faces to the issues behind living with metastatic breast cancer is the goal of advocacy and action. Often people talk about metastatic disease in terms of young women, of African American women, Jewish women, women with inflammatory breast cancer. Is it really age? Is it ethnicity? Should we be focusing on people within these populations based on the presence or lack of biomarkers that fuel most cancers?
It's an interesting question. Of course, people are looking at, researchers, epidemiologists look at cancer mortality by different populations very often. And in fact, there is a study being presented at this conference that shows a higher mortality from breast cancer in Latina populations. And we've certainly seen that among African American populations over time. For many women with triple-negative metastatic breast cancer, they are dealing with a very rapidly, very progressive, and very deadly form of the disease. And it's particularly likely to metastasize to the brain. So far, although there are some real glimmers of hope with a class of drugs called the PARP inhibitors, we haven't made any real breakthroughs beyond the standard chemotherapy drugs, which this subtype of breast cancer is often very sensitive to. And there has been a real focus in this area. That's truly important. I think HER2-positive breast cancer, much more progress has been made in that area, and this is also a very rapidly aggressive and used to be a very deadly form of breast cancer. And the progress in HER2-positive disease leads me to have hope when researchers finally understand more fully the different subtypes of triple-negative disease, which is not, after all, a single disease because it's defined by what it is not rather than what it is. That still remains to be clarified. But I think there's real hope that targeted therapies will do for triple-negative disease what they've been able to do in HER2-positive disease. And likewise for hormone receptor-sensitive disease, I think we're beginning to see at this conference some real further progress building on what has happened before with overcoming resistance to hormone therapies. So I find that very exciting and promising.
Inflammatory breast cancer, triple negative, there may be a comment relevant that you want to bring up to support what we're talking about right now.
While I was diagnosed in 1994, I'm like Maria, I've always felt it's going to be, it's going to happen at some point, and I think most inflammatory breast cancer people feel that way. And so we fall into that population that feels metastatic even when we may not officially be stage 4. And it's like triple negative. I don't think it's one disease. Inflammatory breast cancer is obviously, it's very heterogeneous. We're not all HER2 overexpressors. We're not all ER negative or ER positive. We're this interesting mix. And there's people like me who are still alive, and those with very aggressive, progressive disease.
There's a lot of us that have what we consider the common cancers, but must have rare forms of more common cancers. And it was frustrating for me, and the more I hear this, I'm thinking, yes, yes, yes. We, forgetting ethnic subgroups, there are subgroups of our clinical disease that I feel maybe are falling through the cracks, and many of us represent rare components of these cancers that we hear a lot about. I want to thank each of you and hope that we walk away. You can't problem solve in this period of time, but what we can do is create tangible arguments, common language, and get us all focused, so when we walk away with this advocacy in action, it's a call to action, whether you're an advocate, whether you're a researcher, whether you come out of industry, or if you're an oncologist that really has to learn how to communicate better with patients facing metastatic disease.